The idea of America is the greatest country in the world. The fact that we commit such inhumane acts against these countries is exactly why America spends so much money to make communism seem so evil. What about killing, bombing, and other grossly immoral acts that we aid and commit against civilians? America has long been the bad guys, and I'm tired of acting like we're not. And look, I'll say it here first, the idea of America is the greatest country in the world. The problem is we've fallen way short of that idea. We aren't even shooting for it anymore, and instead we use it to justify all the grossly inhumane things we do to stay atop the global food chain, so to speak. From a history marred in racism that still exists today, to the tinges of fascism bleeding through from authoritarian-like majorities oppressing one minority group to the next. You know, people of color, women, gays, and now the trans community, to an economy that was built on the back of unpaid slave labor and designed to always favor those in power and always favor those with money rather than favoring those who are working to create said money. The laundry list of atrocities we've committed or backed by America is disgusting and unmatched by any nation. And we're quick to sweep our involvement under the rug or chalk it up to just battling global terrorism, but when you look at it, we're often throwing ourselves into situations where we're not needed. We're overthrowing widely popular leaders among their own people for those who better suit our interests, not that country's interests. And time after time, it directly destroys not only the politics of said countries, for example, the Contras in Nicaragua. After America occupied Nicaragua in the early 1900s, they gave political and financial aid and backing to the far-right Somoza regime, which went on to completely destroy the economy in Nicaragua and was widely unpopular. Then when a far-left communist regime started gaining popularity and rising to power in the area, America funded a terrorist regime, the Contras, that was deliberately created to cause political unrest and destroy the economy in Nicaragua. This is who America wanted to back. Our backing included instructing them and teaching them on how to blow up public buildings, to assassinate judges, create martyrs, and how to blackmail the ordinary citizen, women, children, and elderly included. When Nicaragua took the Contras to international court, it was ruled in favor of Nicaragua that the Contras' actions were indeed international terrorism that was fueled by America, and America went on to condemn this judgment. We are the first and only country to be condemned by the ICJ and then condemn their ruling, and we instructed the Contras to attack more undefended civilians. Or how about in the 1970s when the CIA backed a coup to remove the democratically elected socialist president in favor of a far right-wing dictator, Augustus Pinochet. His regime is known for leaving over 3,000 people dead, torturing his prisoners, and displacing over 200,000 Chileans into exile, on top of having a torture complex and a caravan of death, which was a squad that committed atrocities at his direction, such as dropping pregnant women and children out of helicopters, and they're estimated to have killed over 11,000 people in just his first year. This is who America backed and who America directly placed into power in favor of someone who was democratically elected and popular among their people. But I know that the propaganda against communism in America is so thick that a lot of people will hear communist countries and think that these acts aren't even that bad because, oh, they have to be evil if they're communist, even though the fact that we commit such inhumane acts against these countries is exactly why America spends so much money to make communism seem so evil, to justify their actions, when really it's inherently a lot less evil than capitalism. The issue really is authoritarianism, which is common in poor countries where these power vacuums generally exist, which is also when most countries happen to turn to communism or socialism in hopes to repair their economy and keep those who are on the lowest lows of the level in poverty in an already impoverished country to be from less than survivable conditions. So I get kind of where it becomes easy to conflate the two, but there's a lot of really rich fat cat capitalists paying a lot of money to make you think that, and I can assure you that this same authoritarianism is still present in America. Look at how money controls politics, and it exists in plenty of other capitalist countries, like in Chile, for example, as we just discussed under Augusto Pinochet. What about killing, bombing, and other grossly immoral acts that we aid and commit against civilians, directly against civilians and other regimes that are popular? Because I can assure you that the Israel genocide that we're backing is just the beginning of where it starts to get bad for America. How about using white phosphorus on civilians in Syria, killing more civilians than ISIS did, the terrorist organization? Is that bad enough for you? Or how about then going on to torch hundreds of acres of their fields to deliberately leave their civilians, women and children, food insecure, so they wouldn't know when their next meal was? Or how about when we did that same thing to Vietnam, nuking their rural areas and their land, and that still affects them long terms to this day, while also killing hundreds of thousands of civilians who were on the land and depended on the land. This went on to cause millions of birth defects in the regions, millions of health issues that still plague the country to this day. There is over 1 million people permanently disabled still in Vietnam due to this. And it also, if you're unsympathetic to Vietnam or the Vietnamese, it also affected millions of Americans and veterans alike who were in the area fighting. So like, if you want to say, oh, well, the Vietnamese deserved it, which no, they didn't. But if you want to say that, it also affected our area, our soldiers in the area, just the same. Which, when you look into it, most of our dealings in Vietnam were absolutely disgusting and immoral. Instances like the My Lai massacre, with the murder of hundreds of civilians and the sexual assault of their women committed by the United States Army while we were occupying that territory. People were outraged over the bombing of a hospital in the Middle East recently. Many Americans were blaming Hamas for it, calling them terrorists for firing a rocket that would hit their own people's hospital. How about when America bombed the only pharmaceutical factory in Africa? Do you think that's comparable? It was the only one not controlled by America, furthering their dependence on us, and they justified it with lies that were later proven to be untrue. Really just did it so Africa could depend on us more than their economy already does, despite the effect that it would have directly on the sick population in that region. We could discuss America giving money and weapons to royalist forces in hopes that they would beat down communism in Africa that directly led to 18,000 people dying, including civilians. America is so opposed to communism, in fact, that we were willing to uphold apartheid and slavery in Africa just in hopes to battle it because Cuba was sending resources to aid the liberation. There's also plenty of sanctions we've imposed, like on Venezuela, for instance, leading people to be unable to access necessities to survive: food, water, fuel, medical resources. What about the stranglehold that we've placed on Cuba for decades, leading to multiple people having to be homeless, living in poverty, their financial disdain that they've been in since we've imposed these sanctions, despite that being able to have a higher literacy rate than us, fix their homelessness to a rate that's lower than us, and have a longer life expectancy, a lot due to socialist policies that we won't adopt in this country. But what I really wanted to highlight in this video was the imperialism of America, something that we've been really good at sweeping under the rug, despite the fact that our atrocities committed is absolutely insane. America has 800 military bases in 70 countries. For comparison, every other country in the world has 30 bases combined. America has been at war 225 of its 245 years of existence, and truthfully, to air out all the dirty laundry of acts we've committed would take hours, multiple videos, and I don't know if I have the energy for all that negativity. No country matches the atrocities that we've committed in the name of remaining in power, and I in no way agree with the acts that we've committed. We bomb civilians, we aid forces that ruthlessly kill children and civilians alike, we invade and occupy countries in the name of capitalism, we obeyed and aid the overthrowing of democratically elected politicians in favor for dictators who more so are in our palm and will listen to us. Imagine China, for instance, funding a candidate to directly overthrow the president of our country in favor for someone whose policies are more favorable to China than America. Would you be on board with that? Because this is what we do in other countries for what? For global capitalism. That's the root of what it all is. It all comes back to greed and keeping money flowing into America at an ungodly rate just to be hoarded by a few at the top. And it's important to remember, when this much money is coming into a country at the rate that it is, it has to be coming from somewhere. And that somewhere happens to be impoverished countries, less formidable countries that we can bully around and pick on economically, force them to depend on us for their survival, and then what? Stranglehold if they don't agree with our beliefs. And I want to say, to voice these things is not anti-American sentiment, it's anti-imperialism. I don't have a problem with America. America hasn't always been this way. And again, the idea of America is the greatest country in the world. I just think it's time that we return to that idea and stop leaning towards the dystopian, imperialist, puppet master country that feels the need to pull strings in every situation or conflict around the world, more so than it feels the need to help the people struggling inside its own borders day in and day out. If you enjoyed this video, we're Social Society. We're a commentary channel influenced by politics, society, and the economy. We're pretty left-leaning on this channel, but we're open to our right-wingers as well. The biggest thing here is having conversations that get everyone to the bottom of the truth. If that sounds like something that could interest you, consider smashing that subscribe button, leaving us a like, or even commenting on this video, because the only way we become a society is together.